purpose of this video is to demonstrate the Loft Manager Online Designer and go over its many different features. To get there, what you'll want to do is go ahead and log in to the Loft Manager Online application, and from the My Birds tab you'll click on a bird, which will bring you to the Pedigree tab, which is what you see on the screen now. And then from here you'll just click on Print, and then assuming that you are on the New Options tab, you'll scroll down to the bottom where it says Pedigree Designer, which, as you can see here, it says not compatible with mobile devices. So if you're using a tablet or a smartphone, you will not be able to use the Pedigree Designer, mainly because it's not touch compatible. So when you click on this, it'll go ahead and open up the designer in a new window. And the first thing you'll see is a screen which says, please select the layout that you would like to edit. So we've got 6 different layouts here, the first of which is landscape with background. So I'll go ahead and click on that to get started. And then you'll have 2 options from there. You can either edit your current design, or you can choose a theme and customize. Now, if you have not yet logged into Designer and you haven't selected a theme, or you don't have a customized design yet, and you just click on Edit My Current Design, it will by default use the default theme, which is, I'm going to show you here in a second. There's 9 different themes in here that you can choose from, and it'll essentially load the default theme and you can customize it from there. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and click on Choose a Theme and Customize. And now you see we've got 9 different themes to choose from. The first one here, Theme 1, is the default. This is the theme that I was telling you about that will load automatically if you have not yet selected a theme or done any customization. So there's 9 different themes, and you can load any one of these just by clicking on it. So for the purposes of this example, I'm going to go ahead and click on Use Theme 1. You can click on the image or the button, doesn't matter, and it'll load the default theme. First thing I want to point out to you is that you'll notice that the border here, or frame, is actually blue, whereas in the image or the thumbnail that was previously shown, it was actually white. This is a bug with the actual framework that we're using for the designer. Not a big deal, because I'm going to show you something really cool here in a second. You can actually use any color that you want. All you need to do is go to Frame, which is this 4th icon from the left. Click on that, and obviously this is the basic frame. There are actually a number of different frames you can choose from. But if you click on the gearbox here, it'll bring you to the settings, and you can actually change the color. You can choose red, you can choose orange, yellow, green, purple, white, which is the default color. You can even go to the color picker and you can choose any color from the spectrum here. You can even change the size by making it larger, making it smaller. It's completely up to you. You have complete control over the frame. So for this example, I'm just going to change it back to white. I'm going to click on Apply, which is in the upper right hand corner. And now if I just save this, right, it'll take a little bit for it to save. It takes a while because it actually takes a screenshot of the screen of the design area, and it saves it as an image to be used as the background. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on Continue Editing just to reload the data. I'm going to go back into Loft Manager Online, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Landscape with Background, and let's see if we are now using that default theme. Takes a little bit to generate the Pedigree PDF, a little more so than the older system because there's a lot more involved with it. It actually has to compile the PDF on the fly, but it gives you a lot more control and creative freedom over the designs of your pedigrees. So this is actually the default theme that I just loaded. I changed the frame to white, and it's displaying as intended. Going back into the image editor, number of different things you can do here. You might have noticed that when I placed the mouse over the Save button here in the top left, that the data disappeared. That is normal, so don't freak out if that happens. The reason being is that it does capture an image here, and you certainly don't want this generic text, which is just lorem ipsum, being captured and displayed on your background. So that basically hides automatically upon placing your mouse arrow over this blue toolbar, which is necessary to click on the Save button in the top left-hand corner. You can also hide that just by clicking on this Show Hide Sample Data button. And if you want to hide it while you work, you can do that and then click on it again and it'll reappear. So going back into the frames, let me just show you some of the other frames that we have here. And you don't have to use a frame at all. You can actually click on this little circular icon with the X in it, close that out, and get rid of the frame completely. But we've got pine. This is a different frame. We've got oak, rainbow, grunge number 1, which is actually like a white. And you can play around with that. As you can see, it has kind of like roughened edges. What's the other one we've got? Oops. Go back in here. We've got grunge number 2, which is black, right? And if you find that your logo or Loft Manager Online text or logo is falling behind the frame, just click on it, and then over here on the left-hand side, you've got a number of different options. Third one from the left is called Bring to Front. Just click on that, and that will actually ensure that it's always overlapping the frame when you actually save the image. So let me dive back into some of the others here. We've got ebony, art is another one. So you can adjust this, right? You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. And then we've got art number 2. And you can adjust that accordingly as well. So a number of different frames to choose from there. I am going to, just for kicks and giggles, let me go ahead and apply grunge number 2. And I'll bring this down a little bit, click apply. Click on save, top left hand corner. And let's see what this looks like. I'm going to go ahead and go back into the dashboard, click on landscape with background, generating PDF, and let's see what it looks like with the grunge number 2 as a frame. Okay, so there you have it. I swapped out the frame. Now we have grunge number 2 set as the frame. So I'll close this out. Let's go back into the editor, continue editing. I'm going to go ahead and show you some other things here. By default, it'll actually load your loft name up here, and there's well over 250, I think, different fonts that you can choose from here. So you don't need to use that font. You can use a permanent marker. You've got script fonts. If you want a script font, you can use down here in the bottom right hand corner. You can go to the next page. There's a number of different fonts here. Yellowtail. Let's go back in. So there's 150 different fonts right here for you to choose from. And that's just for handwriting. If you click on this drop down list, you can actually put this on monospace. There's a number of different fonts there. You've also got sans serif. You can use these. Or you can go all the way down to serif. And you've got 200 fonts here that you can choose from. So a number of different fonts. Once you choose the font that you want to use, you have a number of different options here. You can do underline, you can do italics, you cross out. I don't know why you'd want to use that, but you can if you want to. And then if you go back into the, once you actually choose the font that you want to use, just by clicking on it, you get a number of different options. So again, we already went over the text style, right? You can change the text style, underline it, that sort of thing, close out of that. But you've got color too, so you can change the color. Maybe you want to make it blue, maybe a bright blue, for example, whatever you want to use. And then click on apply, top right corner. And then maybe you want to make it a little more pronounced, so you can actually add a drop shadow. So we can actually do the offset X, offset Y. So you can add that as a nice effect. And then over here you've got blur, right? So you can make it as sharp or blurry. It's up to you. Click on apply. So that is the text feature. You've got a number of different options here too. You can do textures. which, there's a number of different, the texture will override the actual color, as you can see. You also have outline if you want to add a border, right? You can choose the color that you want and add a border, just like that. You can also go into gradient, and this is, basically it doesn't really line up that well, so you can use it at your own risk, I guess you could say. You can find one that you want to use, or you can just use a solid color, but depending on the size of your actual your loft name, it may not be centered. So for example, using something like this, you can see that Demo Loft is a lot more yellow versus the word MI, which is in purple. So, but that is one option that you can use should you desire to do so. And then you can do opacity. So if you want to make it lighter, you can make it lighter. You can make it darker. And then, what else did I forget here? I think that's about it. You can do background as well. So for example, if you do something like that, kind of makes it stand out a little more, yellow, that sort of thing. You can get rid of the background, click cancel. So a number of different options there. And then if you close out of this and go to text here in the far left hand corner, you can add more text if you want to, just by clicking on add text. Double click to edit, and you can type in whatever you want here. Okay, this is cool, and then you can change the color on that. You can make this, let's say, red, right? And then you can actually resize it if you want to, which you can resize. I don't think I showed you this, but you can resize the text. Even your loft name can be resized as well. You can make it as big as you want. You can make it as small as you want. You can reposition it wherever you like. Click on apply, save that. Let's click on save up here, top left corner. Save is in progress. All right, let's go back into the Loft Manager, landscape with background. Let's just see how this thing's coming out so far. And next thing what we're going to cover is we're going to talk about the background image. In fact, I might even load another one of the designs to show you some of the clip art that you can add. So here you go. This is basically everything that we just got done creating. My demo loft up at the top. I added this is cool, top left hand corner. That's displaying as intended. So I'll close that out, go back into the editor, continue editing. And so some of the other things, let's talk about the pedigree image for a second. The pedigree image, this is just a placeholder image, right? So if I zoom in on this, you can see it says pedigree image placeholder. Essentially, you can move this around wherever you want your pedigree image to be displayed. Maybe you want it closer to the actual, further to the right. Maybe you want to scale that down a little bit, make it small. If I save that, right, you'll notice that it'll actually resize and reposition itself. Save as complete. Let's see how it looks here. I click on landscape with background. So that gives you a little more control over where your pedigree image is going to be displayed at. It's not perfect, so if you find that it's off a little bit, you just go back into the designer and move it around a little bit until it's right where you want it to be. So here you have it. The pedigree image is resized, it's smaller, and it's shifted a little more to the right. So you have complete control over that. I'll close out of this, back into the designer. So let's say, for example, you actually delete this, which you can do by clicking on the trash can here on the left-hand side, this little toolbar that pops up. By the way, this will display whenever you click on any one of the objects that you can edit. This little toolbar will be displayed. And just going over these real quick, you can duplicate the object, right? Click on that, and now I have two of these. The other one here is flip, so you can flip it horizontally. You can also rotate it, right? You can bring to front. I showed you that already. So if you've got something that's overlapping, maybe you want this is cool to be in front, you can click on bring to front, and that will always appear over whatever you have in the background, unless you click on it, of course. If you click on it, whatever you click on is always going to be towards the front because you're currently editing that. And then the trash can, of course, clicking on that, it'll actually delete the object, right? So you can delete that. So back to the pedigree image, if you were to delete this, right, and it's completely gone, then when the system runs, you're not going to have a pedigree image displayed on your pedigree. So if you want to add that back, you just click on this pedigree image option up here, and it'll add it back in place. Then you can just resize it, put it where you want it, and it's right back to where it was. Same old's true for your loft info stuff. This is editable down here in the lower left corner. All right, you can make it larger, smaller. You can change the color. Anything, all the features that I just showed you with the text when editing the loft, your loft name, you can do the same stuff down here with your loft contact information. So if you delete that, again, you click on delete. Then you can click on the loft info button and it'll add it back. You can then reposition it, resize it, and then change the color. Something different. Maybe you want it black, that sort of thing. Just saves you a bit of typing, that loft info button, so you don't have to retype your loft info anytime you basically delete it or edit it or that sort of thing. And you can edit this if you don't want your phone number there or your name or anything like that. You can come in here and just delete it, edit it. Maybe you don't want, or maybe you want your address and contact info, but you actually want to add your loft name. In fact, you can probably just take your loft info, your logo here, duplicate it, click on duplicate, and then bring that down here. And then you can scale it down. You can do something like that if you want to. So those are some of the features there. You can also add shapes. So for example, rectangles, maybe you want to add a rectangle here, change the color. Let's make that, I don't know, white. And then if you want to bring your loft info to the front, and click on bring to front, and now you'll notice that your loft info is in the front and the background is white. So that's one possibility there. I'm going to delete that. Going back into the shapes again, you can see we've got arrows. If you want to do an arrow, you can do that. We've got triangles. Arrow number 2, which is like a solid arrow. You can do a star. If you want to add a star by your logo or your name, you can do that as well. Right? Resize that. Change the colors, that sort of thing. We also have a badge. If you want to use that, you can do that. A couple of different shapes there. What else do we have? We've got, if we go into stickers, there's a number of different options here, right? You've got a number of different emojis that you can use, right? You can add any one of these to your pedigree. You also have stars, which is kind of a cool feature. So for example, if I wanted to add if the background were darker, these would stand out a lot more, but for example, it's kind of hard to see right here, but there's basically a star. So, and I'll actually show you in a second, you can control the opacity of the background if you desire to do so. So I can add this. So let's say I wanted to add that right there. Maybe I want to hide the sample data so I can see what I'm doing. And then I can actually add, go back into stickers, stars. Okay, maybe I wanted to put that on the eye, right? Kind of gives it a cool effect. You can make it bigger or smaller, that sort of thing. So you can do stuff like that. That's one possibility. I'll delete that. And then you have clouds. So let's say you wanted to add some clouds, right? You've got a number of different clouds that you can add up here. Again, I can go over to this flip horizontally option and I can flip it and I can just kind of, well, let me duplicate that, right? So you got a number of different clouds and I'll add a couple more on this side. It's kind of hard to see right there, but let me just click on a few of these other clouds so that you can see what they look like. Lots of possibilities with the clouds, and they look pretty real. So you can have some fun with that. And then what else do we have? We've got bubbles. So if you wanted to actually use one of these to kind of make some text pop, you could do that. Lots of different ones to choose from. Clicking on any one of these will add it to the actual landscape. You can put text in there, that sort of thing. And then if you can go to pigeons, right, there's a number of pigeon-specific clip art that you can use, and clicking on any one of these, you can add it to the dashboard. I keep saying dashboard, I meant to say designer. You got birds over here, that's another option. You can do a flock of birds. And when you add these, by the way, you can actually change the opacity, right? So if it's too dark, make it lighter just by using that. They're all editable, so you can set that as a background. What are some of the other ones we've got here? We've got a good example of that is, I'll say this one here. If you wanted to change the color on that, you could go in and do color, make it red, you can make it blue, right? Scale it down, apply, and then you can do opacity, bring that down so it's lighter. Lots of different cool things you can do with that. That's the stickers. We went over the frames, and let me go ahead and delete the stuff that I've been adding here, and let's go into filters. Before we do that, let me get rid of the frame, and I'm going to show you the background feature here. This background feature, if you click on this, you don't have to use any of the 9 different backgrounds that you can choose from. You can swap it out with something that, if you have a background of your loft, for example, or maybe a background of yourself, you can actually upload that as well. So what you can do is click on the delete/replace background option here and swap that background image out with something different. Before we do that, let me point out some of the requirements here. The background image has to be 1300 by 1000 pixels. That's the size requirements for it to fill the entire background of the landscape. If you don't have those dimensions in place, then you might get it might look skewed, or it might even be repeating. So make sure it's 1300 by 1000. You can use Photoshop, or there's a number of different tools you can use online to resize it as well. Image must be in PNG or JPEG format, and the image size must be no more than 2 megabytes in file size. So as long as it meets those criteria, it'll look really good. You won't have any problems with it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on delete, replace background. Background image is now gone. I'm going to click on upload background, and I'm just going to, I found a generic image earlier of a loft from one of these image sites, and I'm going to use that as the background. Right, so I'm uploading that, and here it is. As you can see, it's really dark. You wouldn't be able to read any of the text if it were that dark. So what you want to do is use this opacity feature, and you just drag that over to the left, and you can set it, as light as you want, so that your text appears to, so that your text is legible. Going back in, let me just make it a little bit lighter. So you've got complete control over that, and that's how you would add an image of your loft, right? So if I save this, I'll show you what that looks like. Of course, this one, like I said, I got this off of one of these image sharing sites, which is basically, I think it's called Dreamstime. So there's watermarks all over it. It's not the best example, but if you go into landscape with background again, we'll see what that looks like. And by the way, you can use this. You can use this for all 6 of the different layouts. The biggest difference is that the other layouts don't have a background image, so you don't have the ability to use a background image with the other 5. The only one that you can use a background image with is the one that's basically landscape with background. Right, so going back into the editor, we'll continue editing. So that was the background image option. And what I wanted to show you is I'm just going to go ahead and hide the sample data for a second. And I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to increase the opacity a little bit. And I want to show you some of the filters. So I think the last option that we've got to cover here. And here you can actually set it to black and white, or I should say grayscale in that case. This is black and white right here. You can sharpen the image if you want to, invert, right? You can do vintage. You can do this one here is called Brownie, Technicolor. You can change the brightness here. Some of these actually have settings so that you can change how bright or dark the image is. You also have pixelate if you want to pixelate the image. You've got blur. Okay, you can emboss, which is a nice one too. I like that one. It's kind of different. So there's a number of different filters here that you can also apply to your background image. So I wanted to point that out to you as well. And so that's basically, I think we covered all of these. The only other thing that I want to show you now is if you go back into edit different layout, right? If you want to switch this out, you get a warning. It says any unsaved changes will be lost if it continues. Just a reminder that if you haven't clicked on save in the top left-hand corner, you will lose your any work that you've done. So always make sure that you click on save to save anything that you've done, any changes before going into another layout. So I'll go ahead and click on continue, and I'm going to go into landscape as an example here, edit my current design. This is just going to well, this is something I was experimenting with this earlier, so let me just load the default. I'm going to go to landscape, use default. Okay, this is default. And so here you can't, as you can see up here at the top, there's no options to add a background image, but you can still get creative with this. There's quite a bit of stuff you can do. You can go to shapes, you can do a rectangle, you can add this, maybe you wanted to add like a border here on the left hand side, right? You can take this, you can scale it and make it the size that you want, right? Something like that. And then you can actually add text, right? Make the text white, bring that over here. Can rotate this. Maybe you could put your I'm going to bring this over so that you can see what it looks like on top of that. Click on the bring to front, right? And so right here what you could do is you can actually make this say something different, right? You could put your phone number in here. Maybe you're going to an auction or something and you wanted to promote your bird. Maybe you have a bird that you want to sell. You could put your phone number in here, something like that. (1-800). It's just a generic phone number. All right. So there's that. Scale it down. So you can put your phone number on there. You could do something like that just to make it pop a little bit. Actually, I have a dash in there. Just one example of what you can do. And I mean, you can still use, clip art, right? So you can still use pigeons and stuff if you wanted to add something like this. You could still do that. You can still add text. You can still add shapes. You just can't add a background image. So that's that, and I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the others. Right, you've got 5 generation. Right, so again, you can show or hide your sample data here just by clicking on this option. Let's go into a different one. Show you the portrait. here's portrait, and again, you can see the sample data. Let's go into another one, portrait long. It's portrait long, so resize that sort of thing. Let's go into another one, classic, and that's classic. So you have the ability to, edit any one of these 6 different layouts, and you can add text, shapes, stickers, clip art, if you will. You can edit your loft info, scale your pedigree image if you want to. So you have a lot of creative freedom there. You just don't have the ability to add background images. So just going back into the landscape with background for a second, I'm going to show you some other themes here that we've added. Here's one here. Let's use theme 7. For example, you can load this one. Again, you can change the frame color as needed. That's one option. You've got some of the other ones here. Choose a theme. You've got this one here. It's another option. And let's do one more here. Theme 8, for example. And then you can, once again, you can customize this stuff. You don't want a frame, maybe you want to add this one, maybe you want to add grunge white, and you can adjust this. So lots of capabilities, and actually there's one more feature that I have not covered yet, and that is basically the ability to upload your own images. So if you want to add your own logo, you don't have to use the text here. You can import or add pictures of a bird. If you have a picture of a bird that you like to use, or you want to swap your loft name out with a logo, top left hand corner, if you go to open, click on overlay image, you can now import an image. So for example, I've got a sample logo here for John Boyle's Heart of the West logo, and I can bring this in, right? PNG, I believe this is the one. Yeah, so this is just a generic logo that I created to demonstrate what's possible here. So I can delete loft name, put the logo in place, right? Just like that. And you can add all kinds of different pictures here and stuff. Whatever you come up with, you can add it in here. So that's pretty much it. I think I've covered all the features of the designer. I hope that you find this well, and that you can create some really cool designs for your pedigrees. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot us an email. Thanks.